What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter. I'm joined today with Meaghan. How you doing today, Meaghan?
I'm wonderful. Thanks, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. And just to make sure, I've got the right vowel in there after the M. It's not like a Meaghan or something like that, is it?
Correct,
Okay,
Megan. Yes.
Meaghan. All right, sweet. So I'm in a great mood today because I've got my favorite audience member watching today. And why is my favorite audience member watching today? Well, it's because I interview commercial real estate investors on these chance encounters. And why am I doing that? Well, the first thing is that I've got the five different motivations that I found distinguish the different motivations of commercial investors. And I'm like, well, which one of them is you? And the other thing I go through is I go through the six different roles in commercial real estate. And then I say, what's your core competency? What is it that you're actually intending to contribute to your next deal? But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Meaghan, can you please introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. I'm Megan Davenport. I'm with Gibby's Capital Investments. We're an investment firm based out of Texas, and that's pretty much our focus market as well, as in the Texas area.
All right, beautiful. So let's go on to the motivation piece. The fun thing about the motivation piece is even the beginners know why they're doing it, even if they don't know what they're going to be doing in the business. So that's why I go through these first. The first motivation I've found, which is the big reason for the wealthy, which is preserving your purchasing power. If you already rely on the cash flow that comes from the assets you own to make ends meet, then the biggest thing that's going to be going through your head is, what about inflation? Inflation is going to eat away at this the value of this cash flow and possibly make me have to sell an asset, which is what you don't want to do. So that is why somebody in that situation will want to make another acquisition. That is not my primary motivation. My one is because I've got a background in tech. Specifically, I worked for a CRM company, and then I ended up opening up my own agency, helping CRMs integrate with their shopping carts and all that kind of fun stuff. But the problem is, if you are making money in the form of salary or wage, then you're paying more in tax than anybody else. So it made more sense for me to pivot into something where I'm getting the lion's share of what I get in the form of equity or wealth. So that's what I'm up to. But most people come into commercial real estate and they want more control over their time. Maybe they want to fast track their retirement in the sense of one day they don't want to do anything whatsoever. But often it's more of they want to work perhaps fewer months per year or fewer weeks per month or fewer days per week. So that is a very frequently chosen one, but sometimes you get people who are super duper ambitious. They want to buy their entire hometown. They want to get that legacy wealth that where their great grandchildren will never have to hold a day job. That is another motivation that is great for some people in the team because they'll be hustling into their 90s. And then the last motivation I found is some people pick a sector of society or the environment or animals or sending people to Mars or whatever it is, but they recognize that if you're going to make a really big impact in society or in much of anything in general, finances are the vehicle that's actually going to make that happen. So that's why they end up turning to commercial real estate and making acquisitions. They're trying to really make an impact. So of those five different motivations, like what combination of those best describes you, Meaghan?
We are really a combination of those things. When we got into this, we have a family business. So it's me, my husband, and my future son in law. And we really wanted to create an environment to where we have quality family time. Quality family time does not equate necessarily in most people's realms via a W-2. So we wanted to be on our own clock, making our own rules, doing our own thing. so that we could really have time out as a family to spend time together. I have my first grandbaby, so we really want to be able to create an environment to where, if we want to take off for 2 weeks out of the year and take that grandbaby to Disneyland, then my goodness, that's what we're going to do. It's also for us creating that impact in our community. I spent a little bit of time at the CASA here in Montgomery County, and now that we're into real estate, I don't have time really to be a court-appointed advocate. However, I can still contribute financially to that organization because they're making a huge impact in our community and really nationwide. So that's really important to us. And we have a couple other nonprofits that we like to contribute to, really just leaving that legacy impact in that way. It's very important to us as well. So we're really a combination of those things.
All right, that's beautiful. So the next part here, and I always include this even when my guest is experienced. I always go through all 6 of the roles so that you in the camera there learn how to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate. So the first one I'm going to start off with, and keep in mind you can go to dandoesdeals.com and download and print out your own Dan Does Deals commercial role die. And I don't even ask for your email, which is a really bad move as far as a marketing thing goes. But I want you to be able to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate. So first, let's talk about what a repositioner is. A repositioner looks at a bunch of different properties. They're looking at doing a bunch of paperwork at the same time. And what are they doing with those papers? Well, the first thing, there's a fancy word for it. They're underwriting, okay? Which means they're doing the math. They're saying, hey, does this building actually make what this seller claims it is? And the other thing that's going through their head is how can they reposition it? In other words, how can they make changes to make it so that the property makes more money than it does right now? And the main tools, I'm going to mention the different tools that the repositioner has to find that upside. The first one is if you have more efficient operations, you get fewer of those Benjamins from going down that toilet, then that way the property's actually making more money. And operations, there's more to it than just unclogging toilets, mowing lawns, and taking out the trash and all that sort of stuff. There's also bookkeeping. There's also one of my fortes is marketing, and that keeps the vacancy rate low. So there are a few different ways, but of course, real estate is hot like crazy. So operations isn't necessarily going to cut it on its own. So fairly often a repositioner will get a contractor team in there. And they're going to do a value add, aka renovations. They're going to make the place nicer because that way people will be happier to pay more in rent. And that is what the upside is. That's what the repositioner is really looking for. Now, that might seem like that's enough, but if you're from the internet like me, then you're going to need a local. You're going to need somebody who lives nearby. They can be the accountability person. They can be there in an hour or two, whereas I don't even want to have to find my passport. But the biggest thing is the local is making sure that the contractors aren't cutting corners, that they're maintaining their schedule, making sure that the operations aren't fudging their pictures and they're doing their jobs and all that kind of stuff. And that sounds like the whole story, but of course it's not that simple still. You need to go to the financiers, the fund managers, the banks, and say, hey, I want to buy this property and it's worth tens of millions of dollars. Do you happen to have tens of millions of dollars you want to lend me for that? And they might be cool with that, but they're going to say, okay, this is the team, this is the deal. They're going to say, but who's the sponsor? And who's the what now? In some coaching programs, they kind of gloss over that part. But if you want to be eligible for a loan, somebody in the fold has to have at least the amount, at least a similar asset. So like if it's a 350 unit apartment complex, somebody in the fold has to already own a 350 unit apartment complex, and there has to be a certain amount of liquidity. And then you also need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan. But if you have all those pieces, you've got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Meaghan, as far as core competencies that you're most likely to contribute to your next deal, what will you be adding to the group?
So my role primarily is the asset manager. So my husband does acquisitions. He's the first lot on your
Repositioner,
site
right?
there, repositioner, right? He goes out and searches the market and does all that groundwork, puts together the business plan, and it's really up to me to implement the business plan. One of the reasons that we continue to focus on the Houston market is that we live, work, and play here. So I am the boots on the ground. I do everything from the initial walkthrough secret shop all the way through till we end up selling the apartment. So I'm on
Mhm.
track with all of my contractors and my property managers and my regional. And, we just work together as a team to force that appreciation and make it a beautiful, safe environment for our tenants to live in.
Excellent, excellent. So you also are the local piece you're saying there in Houston. And my next question is usually the ideal property. And so when commercial investors are asking each other, "Hey, what's your buy box? What's your ideal property?" They're really asking for three main things. The first one's the geography. So what state, what counties, what neighborhood? Okay, those can all matter as far as being like the perfect property for them. The second one, we're talking about commercial real estate, and in industrial or warehousing, you're talking square footage. But in multifamily and self storage, other types like that, you're going to want to know the unit count. You're going to need to know how many units there are, and possibly how many you could build down the road, that sort of thing. But the third thing you're going to want to know is the class. Okay. So the class, they use that same word for two different things, which kind of bugs me. But the first meaning, it's the condition of the building itself. So is it messed up? Is it immaculate? Like, where is it in between? And they use the same system as they do on tests in grade school, like where it's like, oh, here's a B minus, an A minus, A plus, all that sort of stuff. But the other meaning of class is the neighborhood that the property's in. And so then they're looking for, it's like, okay, what's the crime rate? How are the schools that are nearby? Those sorts of things. So Meaghan, you already mentioned Houston, but as far as properties that it's easier to say yes to, it's more difficult to say no to. What could somebody bring you?
So we primarily focus on the value add business plan. So we're looking at C plus properties in B and C areas. We pretty much stay out of war zones. We're not looking to get into that big of a repositioning per se, and really it would highly depend on if the neighborhood is showing a path of progress or not. If it's getting regentrified, we may take a look at it, but it's got to be pretty deep into that regentrification period for us to be interested. We are also diversifying a little bit and going after those Class A properties. So we've got a couple different groups of investors that we work with, and some like the value add and some just like the cash flow. So either one of those types of deals we would be interested in looking at.
All right, beautiful. And the other thing that I love about commercial real estate is that
Thank
because
you
you
for
have to
that.
have these extra roles here, yeah, it's people are so helpful, but we're all better equipped to help some more than others. So as far as who you're best, you know, equipped to help me personally, because of my marketing background, the sponsors and KPs usually have the systems in place where I can make a bigger impact. So that's who I always want to meet, but without breaking any SEC restrictions, especially if you got a 506B raise going on. No enticing investors, but who can you help more than anybody else in commercial real estate?
Who am I positioned to help? You kind of froze up there just for a minute.
Yeah, that's right. It's which of those different roles are you better off, like better suited to help? And I mentioned that sponsors and KPs are who I focus on personally, just because I focus on those marketing systems, content creation, outreach,
Hmm.
CRM stuff. So.
Hmm. So for me, because asset management is really my wheelhouse, we already do a lot of, I wouldn't say coaching as a way of, a financial profitable side, but just new people into the multifamily space. We talk to a lot of new people and just kind of help them with those systems and processes, and what to look for. A lot of training that's out there is really great to get you up to the LOI phase, but then
Mhm.
after LOI, it's like, okay, what happens now? And so we found that a lot of people just kind of need a little bit of guidance and in that connecting people. We love to connect people with other, sponsors and operators and put teams together. So we really, our team as a whole just has a value add mindset. We love to be able to add value to other people, in really any level of this process. But we do that for a lot of new people coming in as well.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And that's part of the reason why I made 506B me. It's because I realized that people are putting down six figures on day one, and then suddenly if anybody who's involved isn't accredited, then suddenly it's illegal to talk to new people. Like that's a
Right.
terrifying situation, and that's why I want to do something about that. But so that is the perfect person to reach out. The best way to reach out to you, you've got your email and all that kind of stuff going on behind you. I do a lot of my stuff through LinkedIn. Is email the best way to reach out to you, or is there a website that's better, or is it LinkedIn, or what is it?
We're very active on LinkedIn and Facebook. We have Facebook pages for Gibby's Capital Investments. We have LinkedIn. Email is fine as well, but we are very active on all those social media platforms.
All right, beautiful. And I only have one thing left, which is actually for you in the camera, which is if I can draw your attention just below my left hand, you'll notice this red button and it sucks. It's a terrible thing. It's so bad. The only like what you should do like now is you should click on the button and then it turns gray. It's like you gotta see this button. It's amazing. Like it just wow. I call it the gray button of tranquility, and it has a magic power. The magic power is YouTube starts to pay for these videos instead of me, and that's what I would really like. So, and you, all it really does is it means that my videos might show up on your list of suggestions. You don't even have to watch those. You've already done me an enormous favor by clicking that button and watching this. And just like you, Meaghan, you've done me an enormous favor by joining me today. This has been fantastic getting to know you.
Yes, thank you, Dan, so much for having me on. Sorry it took so long for us to connect.
All good. All right, thanks. Hey, syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey, yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay, are you already logged into 506B me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506B me, everybody.